Can somebody please remind me? Because I'm going to forget. I know I'm just going to forget. I'm not reviewing hardly any of the slides from Monday, Georgette. Okay, so this is the last slide of, again, of the integrated marketing, relationship marketing lecture. If you haven't heard that lecture yet, basically what integrated relationship marketing is basically an attempt, or marketer's attempt, to build and keep profitable and loyal customers. And what they want, essentially, they being the marketers or companies, is that they want, God, I don't know why I'm getting spam calls. Basically, they don't want just a simple single transaction from these customers. They want to build customers that are going to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back, because it's cheaper to have customers that are brand loyal and that are going to be advocates, as opposed to just having customers for, single transaction and you're done. And nowadays, companies want try to avoid this. Um, and so, what else was I going to say about this? So, the whole point of relationship marketing is to essentially make customers that are interested and turning them into long-term advocates. And this happens through lots of communication. Generally speaking, this communication is highly personalized because these companies are able to utilize data, right? They accumulate your data, maybe because you went on their website, or that maybe it was sold to them. And so because of this information, they know they can send you messages, or it enhances the possibility that you're going to respond. And so at the end of the day, you want customers to feel like they're in this mutually beneficial relationship with a company. So in other words, right, the company takes on the characteristics of a human being. So you want to have relationships with people where you feel like it's mutually beneficial for you and for them. And once you feel like it's, too one-sided, then you no longer want to be in a relationship with them, him or her, whoever. So anyways, so this last slide talks about why this sort of marketing fails. And so number one reason why it fails is that the employees themselves don't believe in the product, or don't believe in the customer. Because remember, the employees are also, not only are they stakeholders, they're also consumers, right? And so who best knows about the product than the employees? And so if the employees start saying negative things about the product or about the company, that has a good chance of undermining the efforts of the organization. So number one, negative word of mouth. So customers, especially influencers, um, are vitally important that you get them on your side. And so because consumers are also stakeholders, separate from employees. And so they start saying negative things about your product, on their YouTube channel or on TikTok or whatever they're on, these social media influencers, that can bamboozle integrated in relationship marketing. If the media starts to investigate your company or your products, or the government starts to investigate it, that can also, um, negatively influence your relationship marketing with customers. Because, right, who wants to be friends with somebody who's being investigated by the media or by the government? Generally speaking, you don't want that. Management performance can also hurt your company's efforts for relationship and integrated marketing. So I always talk about the fact that when I used to work in the entertainment industry, one of my jobs, I had many, was working for a film distribution company. And we had, I thought, a really pretty good model for success in terms of we were like essentially a company that could have been positioned in a way that really we had little to no competition in the marketplace. So essentially what the company was, we were trying to acquire US Latino films, but also Spanish language films, and we were going to distribute them in the marketplace. And this is way before there was a company called Pantaleon, which is what exists nowadays. But our boss, our management, didn't listen to us in terms of like, oh, this is the way these are the movies we should be acquiring, not those. And this person would just not even listen to us. And so because of poor performance by management, essentially our company failed when it very easily, I think, could have succeeded. Unfortunately, I think about this all the time. Oh, wow, what a missed opportunity. Anyways, so poor management can bamboozle your company, or I should say, bamboozle integrated or relationship marketing. Poor customer service. So, one of the things that I sort of like about living in the United States is the idea of customer service and that we really care about our customer service. If you've ever traveled to other places around the world and you go, wow, that is terrible customer service, you realize, right, how spoiled we are in terms of customer service. So sometimes the customer service performance is not so good. So if you don't feel like you're being treated well, right, you want out. And so that bamboozles integrated or relationship marketing. Or maybe you don't have, right, the management, going back to management maybe doesn't care enough or doesn't think enough about customer service. So the initiatives they put into place aren't going to work. Um, or maybe they're not necessarily feasible. And so, like for instance, one of the big challenges that I think Disney's going to have when they move into China, or they're already in China, is this idea of trying to train folks, Chinese employees, on customer service and how to sort of give the Disney-fied um, philosophy of customer service. I don't think customer service is a big deal in China based on everybody that I've talked to. And so I think that, this is going to be tough for Disney just in terms of trying to train its employees and implementing these Disney initiatives that they use in the United States and try to make them work in China. I think it's going to be challenging. They probably can do it, but I think it's going to be a challenge. Product quality and product performance. So obviously, if the product quality starts to diminish, or you're not happy with the quality or the performance, then you might break up with that particular company, right? So unless you're like, a hardcore advocate, then maybe you won't break up with them. So for instance, I have a friend who's really into Nike, or I think he still is. And so we were having a beer once, and I don't know if you guys follow basketball at all, college basketball. I actually don't, but it just so happened that on the game there was, or on the TV there was a game, and we looked up and we saw a basketball player literally fall out of his shoe. Literally fell out of his shoe. The shoe broke in half in the middle of the basketball game. And so I was like, wow, that's a bad shoe. Goes to show you that Nike maybe isn't so good. And he tells me, oh, it's his fault, the basketball player's fault, not the shoe's fault. I thought that was unusual. But the point is that, he's a hardcore advocate and he defends his brand being Nike. Anyways, the point being is that if performance starts to diminish, let's say, a lot of you who play pickup basketball, and let's say you're wearing Nikes and the Nikes tear in half, maybe, right, because of poor quality and poor performance, you will stop being a Nike fan and stop advocating for Nike, for instance. Maybe the in-store or out-store displays are not very attractive and not very engaging. That could hurt relationship marketing or integrated marketing, because what if you don't even know that those products exist in the store, for instance? Packaging. Nowadays, packaging, at least to our modern day American consumers, packaging is very important. This idea of having quality design is very, very important. And so if things don't get our attention in terms of packaging, we ignore them. So for instance, right, some of us are more apt to buy products just simply based off of the packaging versus if it's actually quality. And so that's important to think about. Store locations or distribution. Maybe the store locations are located in a place where it's not easy to get to. Maybe their web presence isn't very strong or doesn't work very well. So store locations or distribution may not be so good. So maybe because they don't have a good relationship with the distributors, it takes a long time to get their goods, for instance. Price could be another no when it comes to integrated relationship. So I put the question mark of too expensive. So obviously that could be one issue. It's just not affordable, and so therefore you can't afford it. So therefore you don't want to buy it. The other issue is too cheap. It's just possible to have products where because they're so cheap, you're thinking to yourself, well, is it even worth it then? Because it's so inexpensive. You think the quality also is not going to be high quality. That's the reason why it's cheap. And so too cheap or too expensive might be an issue. So you want to make sure your pricing is, at a happy medium, because you don't want to be in a relationship with something that's cheap or someone who's cheap, for instance. Uniforms or dress codes. Maybe you don't like the idea that employees have to have a dress code, or maybe you think they should have a dress code. The point being is that the uniforms or the appearance of the people that work in the store, at least they look presentable. So dress code or uniforms or lack thereof could be a deal breaker. Deliveries, right, or delivery drivers. So you may have control over this or not, because maybe you just hire FedEx, or maybe you hire UPS, or maybe you hire the US Postal Service. But deliveries might be problematic. The delivery drivers may not be kind to you or nice to you. So for instance, occasionally, I don't know if it's the same driver, but occasionally I think he's UPS. The only reason I know something arrives at our door from UPS is sometimes I just hear a crash on the door and I go, oh, something must be here. So, by the time I open the door, the person's gone. So I have no idea who this person is. Anyways, you know, I don't think, me personally, I don't think that's very kind, but I don't really care, honestly. If they're kind or not kind, doesn't really bother me too much because I know they're busy. But some of you, right, who care about good customer service, going back to customer service, might be annoyed by the fact that this person just throws the box at the door, and maybe just gives a quick knock and leaves really fast. And you think of that as not being very kind. Or maybe it takes forever to get the products again. Either way, even though delivery may not be the company's fault per se, you might take it out on them. So last but not least, sales tactics. You might find them annoying. So for instance, uh, maybe you show up at their store and the salesperson is very aggressive. It's just like trying very hard to sell you products. You may not like that, right? You may dislike that. I would say that I think you guys are Gen Z. So I think you guys and ladies, I think you guys are more apt for the slow sale and build a relationship versus the hard sale. And I could be wrong, but I think if the person is too aggressive, then it turns people off. And say primarily Gen Z, but I think that applies for lots of folks. Anyway, so is there any questions on why integrated or relationship marketing fails? All the different ways that it can fail. So the person who's responsible for answering this question in the group project, right? If, for instance, their campaign failed, did it fail for one of these reasons, for instance? This also applies for the person who's doing the group perception part at the very end of the project. No questions? Is there any questions regarding the case study? Okay, a couple of things that I'll that I'll mention that generally are problematic just from all the times that I've taught this class. I won't go through all of them unless somebody has a specific question. So situational analysis, we already talked about the pestle during week 1. And so don't provide, you don't need to provide me with 4 or 5 different points for political, or 4 or 5 different points for economic, or 4 or 5 different points for social cultural. You just need one, okay? And what I mean by intertwining is, let's just say hypothetically, in the case study, you see something that says the economy of Japan is growing, and it just so happens that the business is targeting Japan as one of the territories. So obviously you would say growing economy in Japan, that's E, growing economy of Japan, E, economic. And you would put down at the end of that sentence in parentheticals, you can put down S for strength, or W for weakness, or O for opportunity, or T for threat. It's up to you on what you think that is. Obviously, it should be opportunity because you don't control the economy of Japan. So that would be an example of what I mean by intertwine, right? E, good economy, Japan, good Japanese economy. That's in parentheticals, O, opportunity. So make sure you just do one per category. Only list what's in the actual case study. If it's don't infer. It's if it doesn't say it none or didn't mention or NA not applicable. So don't infer. It's do it basically on what the case study actually says. No, a sentence, Georgette, just a sentence. Yes. Well, I'll answer that question when I get there, Emily. Um, so hold on one second. The other big problem that some students have is that they don't make the distinction between the communication or marketing goal and the objective. so for example, right, the goal is the desired outcome. So for some of you, right, in this class, those of you who are A students, and I know some of you who are in this class are A students. So I'm assuming your goal for this class, well, I've gotten A's in Puente's class before, so there's no reason why I shouldn't get an A again. That's a good philosophy, actually. And it's the right idea. And so the desired outcome, the goal, right, is like, I want to earn an A in Com 346. That's the goal, right? It's the pie in the sky. And so when you're reading the case studies, what is the company's goal? What is their pie in the sky, right? So like maybe they want to become the number one company in their specific industry or something. So what is their pie in the sky? Now, the objective is not the same as the goal. The objective is something tangible. So when you are going through the case studies, don't ignore the numbers. Okay? I know you might hate numbers. This is a stereotype, of course. But don't ignore the numbers that are in the actual case study. Because there's a bunch of numbers in there, and there's one of them that tells you the actual tangible objective. So you might write the best paragraph in the history of English, right, when it comes to the objective, or the best couple of sentences in the history of English. If you don't have a number in there, it's wrong. And it's wrong from now to the end of the semester. And mind you, some students will never write down a number for their objective, and they'll miss it every single time. So don't be that student, right? So again, objective, an objective has a number. So going back to my example of you want to earn an A in Puente's class, that's your desired outcome or desired goal. Then obviously you would look at the syllabus, right, and say, okay, let's see here. I know Puente does points. He doesn't really necessarily use percentage. So let me look at the number of points that I need to accumulate in order to achieve an A. Does that make sense? That the objective is an actual, something tangible that is measurable, that you can actually, reach. There's a number, there's a dollar amount, there's something there. Ooh, good question, Alexis. No, the number is not always that obvious. So you really do have to read the case studies, because sometimes it is a little bit hidden. Sometimes it is obvious, it tells you, and sometimes not. Not so obvious, at least. And this is where you have to read the graphs. The graphs oftentimes will tell you the number, and sometimes it's embedded in the actual case study as you are reading it. So to answer your question, Alexis, sometimes yes, it's obvious, and sometimes it's not so obvious. Other questions? So, along when you're answering the questions about the objectives, or the objective, I should say, tactics, right? What are the some detailed steps that are associated with the objective that's going to help you achieve the objective, right? So, for instance, again, going back to my example about COM 449, and your desired outcome is okay, I want to earn an A and point this class. The objective is certain number of points, whatever the number of points are. Tactics, okay, so I know that I need to complete these case studies and do well in the case studies. That's number one. I know I need to be a good team player, or at least do a good job on my part of the case studies. And number two, I also I need to do pretty well on the exams. Number three, and so if I do these tactics, if I upload my stuff onto um, Portfolium, if I do everything that Puente says, you know, I should do pretty well in the class. So those are example of tactics, right? So in the case study also, you're going to have tactics, like what are they doing to try to achieve those goals, right? So make sure you don't ignore the tactics that are in the actual case study. The marketing strategy is pretty simple. Um, now, in this part of the case study, you're going to have to infer some parts of it. So, for instance, product, it's always going to talk about product. So, um, that, that's pretty straightforward. Price, sometimes you're going to talk about pricing and sometimes not. So in the case of pricing, you might have to infer. So for instance, you'd have to say price of subscription or price of a ticket, whatever the price is. You don't need to, if it doesn't provide you a specific price, don't put it in. Just put price of admission. Done. Um, Promotion, generally speaking, right? It's oftentimes most of these case studies are going to talk about some sort of promotion they're using, whether it's social media, traditional media, or whatever. Place. This is also sometimes inferred. So where can you buy the tickets? So at the theme park, for instance, or online. So and that's it. So place and price um, are oftentimes inferred. Um, you have to infer. Promotion occasionally you may have to infer. So, but I think most of the time they'll mention something with promotion if I remember correct all the case studies correctly. I haven't read those all the case studies in a while, but I think all of them mentioned something with promotion. But if not, then if you have to infer, then maybe it's based on what you've read, traditional media or social media, for instance. People, you don't have to mention the fifth P. Some students do it. The reason you don't have to mention the fifth P or for people is because people really you talk about that in the target market or a target audience section of the case studies. So any questions on I think these are the first four questions. One, two, three, four. Any questions on the first four questions of the case study? Okay, so the last part of the case study is the target market. So, a couple things. Students sometimes miss this. The the target market is never everyone. If you put down everyone, I'm going to say incorrect. It's not true, right? You're not. These companies are not targeting people who are, for instance, homeless. God bless their souls, but they have no disposable income, so they're not targeting them, for instance. So, if I told you what is the target market for Disney, what's your answer? It's not everyone. So what is the target market for Disney? Let's say Disney theme parks. Yes, Jesse, thank you. Families, right? Now, is there a specific type of family that they're looking for, or is it all families? Right. Probably more middle class families that actually have disposable income. Because how much do they charge nowadays for admission to Disney? Does anybody know? I'm sure somebody here knows. Like $100? Oh my God, no way, Bailey. Is it really? Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Okay. Um, oh my God. All right. That's so if you want to go to both parks, it's like $200, or is that just Disney stuff? Oh my God. Okay. Oh my God. All right. So, all right, well, think about that. Right? It's $200 for yourself, plus your wife, and plus your kids. And so that's already right there. What, $500 more, $600 if you just have one son. If you have two kids, it's two kids plus your wife plus yourself. That's four. So right there, it's $800. I mean, think about how many people have $800 of disposable income sitting around. It's, you know, not everyone. So whoever said, I think Georgette said middle class. So middle class families is probably their target market, because they're more apt to have disposable income where, $800, ouch, does hurt, but at least it's not going to, you know, put them on the verge of bankruptcy, hopefully. And so make sure that, you identify the target market correctly, and then think about what's in it for them. I mean, why would a family spend $800? A family of four spend $800 to go to Disney? What's in it for them? Why would they go there? Hmm, that's a good question, Gabriella. I'm not sure. I honestly don't think they won't. I think people are going to be dying to go, but they're willing to pay for anything, almost. If anything, I think you're right, Jonathan. I actually think that prices will go up. That's my hypothesis. I don't know. I have no insider information. I know nothing, but I think Jonathan is correct, where I think prices will go up. That's what I suspect. Oof, $1,200. Oh my God. Yeah, I think prices are going to go up because um, people are just people are dying to go. No question about it. Um, so I think you're going to see whenever this, the vaccine or the pandemic, you know, sort of diminishes in its impact on people. I think that you're right, Jacob. You're yes, that's actually a very good point. That actually, maybe in the beginning, in order to control the number of folks that are actually going to be in the parks, my sense is that Governor Newsom is probably going to put some sort of limited restrictions on the opening, to sort of a slow open. And so he's probably going to charge more to get in initially. And then as more people are able to get in, the prices are going to drop slowly, but still going to go up, because I do agree with what Jonathan was saying. I think it was Jonathan that said prices will go up. Oh my God. Yeah, this is insane. All right. Well, again, think about everything that you guys are saying is all sort of supporting my point that it's at least middle class families that they're targeting. Because if you are working class or lower class, you might be able to afford to go once a year. And so, like my brother and my sister-in-law, they have the annual passes. I don't know how much they spend, but they go all the time. I think that makes sense if you go all the time. Wow. But eventually they're going to bring back the annual passes, I'm sure. I think that was pretty popular, so that's not going to go away. But that's interesting, Stephanie. I didn't know that. That's hmm. Well, again, I could be wrong, Jonathan. I don't know. Huh. Is it permanent, Stephanie? Is it really permanent? I've heard of the Legacy Pass program, yes. I think my brother has that. Hmm. Interesting. Huh. So they're being grandfathered in from annual passes to legacy passes. This is a very cool discussion. All right. But anyways, moving on. So think about the key consumer benefit of people who spend $800. Why would they spend $800 for family of four or 1,000? Somebody mentioned 1,200 to go to a Disney park. Um, and so, you know, it makes me feel nostalgic. Let's say if you're an old person like myself, maybe that's in it for the mom and dad. Maybe it's what's in it for the kids. Is as a parent, you get to see your kids, experience, the Disney programming. It brings the Disney characters to life, and they get something out of it. So whatever it is that it's the consumer benefit, what's in it for them? Why would they spend again the $200 or whatever they spend to go to Disney? So inside those case studies, that usually again you're going to have to sort of infer. Sometimes it actually tells you, but infer um, what's in it for the customer. Competitive strategies. I think this is Emily's question, I believe. So Emily, um, yes, Emily, in every single case study, there is a competitor that is mentioned in the actual case study. So when you're reading the case study, pay attention to what it says about its competitors. So just in terms of like what they might be doing with advertising or maybe product development or whatever there's they happen to be doing. These are just two examples. But they do mention the competitors in the case studies. It's not what your company's doing, it's what the competitors are doing. And I'm going to say all of them mention competitors. So please do not ignore the competitor part because otherwise you're going to miss this all the time as well. Now, for the evaluation, this is the only part of the case study where, yes, you should probably write a paragraph here. Don't just write a sentence. So in the evaluation, based on all the information you've read, it's like, do you think the company is going to be successful moving forward, or do you think they're going to fail moving forward? So, for instance, there's a case study in there that talks about SeaWorld and the issue they had with the documentary that came out that critiqued them about the killer whales. And so, do you think they're going to be able to bounce back? Yes or no? Based on what you've read, explain why you think they're going to be successful moving forward, or or unsuccessful as they move forward, and why. So this should be a paragraph long. Man, my vocal cords are so out of shape. Whew. So is there any questions on the case study template, on the questions as you go through them, on how to answer them correctly? Oh, that's a good question, Gabriella. That's a really good question. I would say focus on just one. Do one or the other. Do one or the other. But for the competitive strategy, so let's just say you choose to focus on Netflix, talk about in the competitive strategies what Amazon is doing. Or if we choose to focus on Amazon, mention what Netflix is doing. So that's a really good question. Any other questions? Let's see. Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the group project. And I've already put all of you into groups. Hopefully, please, 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 you don't drop. Because it makes it a little challenging when I have to like, oh my God, 2 people from the same group dropped. What am I going to do? So hopefully none of you drop. And so for the group project, things that you're gonna, and I'm gonna, by the way, I'm also gonna put up on Canvas the prompt, sort of, the instructions as well. But I like to kind of go over the project as well, so that way there's no misunderstanding about what's my expectations, and so that way everybody's on the same page. So now, before I start, everybody's in. I think it's this class there's 25 students in this class. I think 24. Anyways, there's 5 groups of 5, ideally, unless somebody dropped. And so you do want to delegate the responsibilities, pretty evenly. Like, for instance, the last question of these steps is the most difficult. So that person, whoever's doing the group perception, that's the only question they should be working on. And everybody else should divvy up the whatever parts they want to do as they go through the prompt. So everybody else should do essentially 2. And on here, I didn't include editing. That's another part that you get graded on. And then that one person should be doing the group perception at the very end, and I'll talk about that shortly. So anyways, the first part is essentially you're going to tell me, okay, which company are you focusing on? So maybe you thought Disney did a good job of marketing something. Maybe they did a good job of marketing something on their Disney Plus platform. I don't know. And talk about the specific industry that they're in. Let's say you're talking about streaming, or maybe it's theme parks, or maybe it's something to do with live entertainment, although most of that has been sort of decimated. So do write about some past successes they've had, like some hits. Let's say if you're doing movies, any significant failures, or within this, you could also talk about any significant controversies maybe that hurt the company. Maybe they were sued by somebody that really hurt them. So that's one part The second part is more talking about recent stuff. So recent branding efforts, have they been successful in launching, let's say Mulan, if we're talking about Disney or something recent, and your recent is, a good way of thinking about recent is maybe, I don't know, within the last 3 years or so. I guess that could be recent. And so, have they been good with their, um, branding or marketing efforts recently or not? And then at the end, tell me, brand strengths. In other words, do you think this company has a lot of brand equity? Yes or no? And or maybe it's something in between. So obviously something like a Nike or an Apple or a Disney, those sorts of companies, generally speaking, have lots of equity, right? Brand strength, equity. You get to think of equity as being sort of how much goodwill do you have in the bank, right? How much money do you have in the bank? So that's the same way of thinking about equity. How much goodwill have they built up in their vault, in their savings account? So that way when they do make a mistake, people are more apt to forgive them because nobody's perfect, right? And so do they have a lot of goodwill built up? So that's the first part of the integrated marketing campaign. So a group member is going to tackle this part. Number two, somebody's going to tackle the situational analysis. And again, you want to focus on relatively recent things that are going on with the pestle. In other words, recent things going on politically, recent things going on economically, social, cultural, with technology, legal, and environmental. And intertwine them with the SWOT. We already discussed this. That's pretty self-explanatory. Now, so what is the objective, right? So what do they want to accomplish? What's their goal? Number one, and number two, what is the tangible objective that they want to achieve? So let's just say that, I don't know. Let's say you're doing something on Marvel or Marvel movies or something. And this is kind of old, but then you would have to look right at the performance of recent Marvel films and see how well they've done at the box office, and go, okay, the average more or less, or the median uh, amount of box office that these movies made was this number, and so we expect that this next Marvel movie is going to also reach about this number as well. So you got to put something tangible in there. So let's say they want to have a $2 billion box office, counting domestic as well as international. And a goal would be like, to open number one at the box office for, I don't know, 5 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever. Does that make sense for a communication objective? So within this objective also, you should consider or think about problems that they've had maybe in the past with their target audience. What is their product category, like movies? And so identify any more sort of marketing opportunities. So for instance, let's just say that um, one of the marketing opportunities right now is the fact that we're stuck in house, in the home. And so therefore there's really no theatrical. And so therefore, let's just say they're streaming something on their Disney platform. That's certainly a market opportunity because everybody right now is streaming content because we're kind of stuck at home and we really can't go out to go watch a movie in a movie theater. Heck, we can't even go out to any sort of like bar or go watch anything live, really, because we're kind of stuck indoors. And so we don't want to be super spreaders. And so therefore, we stream. The fact that it's a streaming opportunity could be, something that's that's actually, booming right now because there's a lack of choices. If that makes any sense. Questions, questions, questions. Okay, no, we'll skip this. This is not that important. So, objectives. Describe what it is that you want the target audience um, to behave, right? So, generally speaking, right? Obviously, if we're talking about, let's say, streaming a movie, then you want them to do, obviously. But before that, you get them to do, you want to appeal to something. So you're going to utilize a technique like whether it's a thinking message or a feel message, and obviously also a do. But generally speaking, you start with something with either thinking or or feeling. And again, within this, you should answer what's in it for them, the target audience. So generally speaking, for most marketing campaigns, you're going to have a mix of all these three, right? So you got to think of to use a thinking message to get you to do something. You're using logic, right? So let's say, for instance, obviously it's Disney. It's a good movie. It's because we've done, we have a history of producing good content for family, for instance. Kind of touching on the brand identity, right? You're using an established, well-known product or service like a Disney or an Apple or a Nike, and you're using logic, right, to get people to like, oh, that makes sense. When this movie comes out on the Disney Plus platform, or maybe you're not a subscriber yet, I'm gonna buy it because Disney does a good job of with family friendly content. It's a logical choice. I'm going to do it. We'll get it. We'll talk about feel soon, and also do um, generic. Generic. In this case, right, has no unique characteristics. Let's say it's Let's just say that maybe it's a product, or let's go back to the idea of a movie that's being streamed, and maybe you've never heard of this distributor. It's not Disney, it's not Warner's, it's not Universal, it's not any of these logos or brands that you're familiar with. But maybe they're doing something unique with their product, or makes it appear to be unique. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's a cool documentary, or maybe it's uh, um, a movie that's being uploaded onto YouTube that's done by students. I don't know. It's something unique that you think, oh, this is awesome. And so the way it's positioned in the marketplace, you seem like it's a logical choice for you to check it out. Questions about this, that it's something generic, but you make it seem unique. Like, check this out. This is going to be cool. This is going to blow your mind, even though you really don't know what it is. Now, a good example of the generic, mind you, you guys remember the Fire Festival? The disaster was the Fire Festival. Right, exactly. How could we forget? Exactly. Right. So, I mean, that idea initially was very generic, right? But they made it into something unique, like go check out this concert on the island. This is going to be so awesome. We're only going to target the influencers, and we're going to make something that's generic, right? A concert into something cool and unique. Because really, if you think about it, right, the idea of a concert really is, putting on an event is kind of, it's kind of generic. If you think about the number of events that are going on in the marketplace. Right. Yes, Jack. And yes, they made an awesome documentary. By the way, you should all watch it if you have time. It's really fascinating. And so just in terms, I think me personally, just watch it, just not because of the execution part, but it's just cool on, I thought it was just genius on how they made something generic that had really nothing unique about it into something incredible. And they generated such a buzz from it. Again, from the marketing perspective and promotional perspective, awesome. Of course, the execution part, not so good. But anyways, that's a good example of generic. Logic. How does it use logic to convince you that this is the right choice? This is more the only example really that I can think of right now at the moment is sometimes in the movie industry, especially, they'll say this was the number one comedy in the this week, or this was the number one drama, something like that. They'll use something like logic to go, well, if you're in to comedies, or if you're into action adventure, or you're into dramas, this is the obvious choice for you because look, we were number one. And so sometimes logic and brand identity could be highly mixed together, but I'm trying to separate the logic from the brand identity because sometimes you may not go to a movie because it's a Disney movie. You might go because, oh, well, this seems to be a hit right now. There you go, Georgette. That's a really good example. The number one New York Times bestseller. Go check out Obama's book because it's the number one New York Times bestseller. Or is it McConaughey? I think he's number two right now. Check out the McConaughey book, which is number two in the New York Times bestseller, or Obama's book. It's logic. If you're into books and you want to read a good book, read what the influencers are reading. Well, a lot of it's constructed, Georgia. Let's just say that. It's not always real. There you go, Jacob. That's an excellent example. So that's they're using logic versus brand identity. It's a tactic, but it's part of their messaging. But yes, it is a tactic. So there's more examples for this one on the field messages. I don't want to like spend too much time because we're running out of time actually. But on the field messages, you got to think about the field messages strategies as sort of centering on emotion, right? So a brand image and how the target audience feels about the product. Again, if you think about Nike and Disney, by the way, Disney and Nike do an awesome job of intertwining their brand image with emotion. And so that once you integrate emotion and make people feel something, they stop thinking logically, right? This is where they're more apt to buy something on an impulse. And so brand image, I'm referring to essentially think about how Disney and especially Nike uses these very creative advertisements to make you feel something that makes you want to go out and buy their product. Attitude. What feelings can be created through the use of the product? Again, creating some sort of emotional tie with the audience. You see this a lot, although this is, again, sort of tied to the brand image. With the Super Bowl ads, right? Oftentimes, because only the big companies can afford these, but what they utilize oftentimes is that they want to either make you feel sad or they want to make you feel happy. Now, also with attitude, this also is utilized a lot with PSAs, trying to make you feel something, right? An emotional tie, like don't text and drive, because if you do, and typically they'll have like right, this person crashes right into somebody, a family or a kid or something like that, and you think to yourself, oh damn, that's tragic. And so, but they try to create some sort of emotional tie with the target audience. Going back to Nike, they promote the idea of a lifestyle, right? This is oftentimes used with fashion. So they try to appeal to you based off of a lifestyle that you have. Spokespeople. So sometimes they'll utilize spokespeople, influencers as sort of respectability. They'll play on your emotions. So again, think about this is again tied to attitude or some sort of memorable reaction. Again, this is tied to the brand image. An example of memorable reaction would be this.
We're going to take a look at how this company has changed the way we watch TV and the way companies advertise. Here's Julia Boorstin.
Netflix's roughly 150 million subscribers binging with no commercial breaks has pushed advertisers to find new ways to reach viewers glued to ad-free platforms. One example, New Coke. It's featured in Netflix's original series Stranger Things, with Coca-Cola bringing back new limited edition Coke cans for sale, turning the company's infamous failure into a new marketing opportunity. The streamer says none of the many brand mentions in Stranger Things are paid for, but they offer Netflix valuable promotion.
In today's world, the streamers have adopted that old movie, technique and are working directly with brands who get product placement integration, but then they'll also promote the show in advertising, on digital, on their social channels, et cetera. So that's building an audience for the show, and that's what the streamers want.
Promotional partnerships also happen off-screen. For Stranger Things, Baskin-Robbins created 8 flavors and collectible containers tied to the show for its largest partnership, and its first with a streaming platform. And it's not just Netflix. Hulu was paid to feature Miller Coors beer in 10 episodes of its Into the Dark series. Hulu says brand integrations work better than 30-second spots on the platform, delivering a nearly 90% increase in purchase intent among viewers and a 75% increase in brand awareness.
So really what they're doing here, right, this idea of brand integration is that essentially they want, especially for people like myself who are old, and I remember, when I watch Stranger Things, I remember about my childhood. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And I remember that Coke when it first came out. So it's a memorable reaction for folks like myself, and maybe for some of you as well. Let's see, check. Oh yes. Yes, you guys are way better about picking out product placement than we ever were, but we didn't even notice it when we were kids. Maybe they didn't do it as much. I don't know. But anyways, any questions on what I mean by feel messages? Oops, somebody just said something. Interesting. So again, are they using emotional messages or using logical messages to try to achieve their objective? And yes, this is, you could argue this is, part of the tactics. And then last but not least, right, it's the do. And oftentimes also when they're doing these commercials, at the very end of the commercial, oftentimes they're going to tell you do, right? So yes, they may have something that has to do with logic, but then maybe at the end of their message, it might say, do it. Or maybe the do part might be a separate commercial that comes along after the think or after the feel. So the do could be an example of do's could be a promotional response. Let's just say that you want to create an immediate purchase. You do, like, if you buy this product now, it's on sale. Don't wait because it's going to go up, I don't know, 20-30%. It's on sale, for instance. Or maybe you might do something that's exclusive. It's a limited amount. So maybe the first 100 people only get this price. Think about when we all wait in front of stores. Is it Black Friday? We're only getting a limited amount of products at that price. Afterwards, the sale goes away. That's an example of the do. Yes, thank you, Jacob. Incentive programs. Do they offer some sort of incentive program? So, for instance, they reward you for repeat purchases. So, for instance, I know I'm a member of Amazon. Because I buy a lot of diapers, so through Amazon, and they actually offer me a reward because I buy so many diapers. And so, do they offer some sort of incentive program for repeat customers? And or do they create something interactive, right, where like a website or something where you can engage with the actual company? Interactive, because when you're being interactive, you're actually doing something. So all these are part of the message strategies. These are all tactics, right, in order to achieve the objective. A lot of the students just simply say, they give me like one little example of a think or a do or a feel when they answer this question. Other questions, other parts of this part is, do they have one cohesive message or tone across the promotional mix? Somber or happy, for instance. Think about typeface. This is where it goes back to the idea of logos. Do they use any cool logos? Do they use any cool taglines? Do they use cool colors to get your attention? Do they use a cool package design to get your attention? So think about the typeface and the style that they utilize, because a lot of companies actually spend a lot of time and money thinking about attractive typeface and style that's going to get you to actually grab their product and actually buy it. Do they have a cool slogan? Like, again, going back to Nike or slogan, just do it. Did the movie or product utilize a cool tagline? A tagline generally is something that's short term but might become long term. Did they use a celebrity spokesperson as the spokesperson that was promoting the actual product? What's their personality, right? And what I mean by that is somebody like hip and cool, like let's say Matthew McConaughey doing the Lincoln commercials? Is it the other actor who I can't remember? Is it JP? What's his last name? Gosh, he's a really cool actor. He does the insurance commercials, sort of like a professor type person. What's his last name? He's a bald dude like me. I can't remember his name. I think he does State Farm, I want to say. There's another actor who has that great voice. I can't remember who used to be in 24. Another spokesperson for insurance. So anyways, think about the personality type for their as they're presenting the yes, he was the great guy. He was the great teacher in Whiplash. He was the drumming instructor. Yes, J.K. Simmons. Thank you, Luke. J.K. Simmons, that guy. So, I mean, think about, he's sort of like a professor in these ads. So think about the type of spokesperson that they're using, because, really that's what's going to resonate with the target audience, right? If you think about it. And think about any theories, anybody who's taken COM 446, that can explain the success or failure of why this worked or why it didn't work. Why maybe these spokespeople had an aura, Those of you who remember COM 446, or maybe they didn't have an aura. That's why it failed, for instance. And this will be the last slide I talk about. And we'll go back to this when we meet again next week. We'll review again before we tackle the copyright part. So I do think this is really important because it's a big chunk of your grade. But do watch it again. And remember, we'll go over 5, 6, 7, and 8 next week. So the marketing strategy. So this is the 5 P's, or you can use the 4 P's. Again, this is where you dive into more detail about the actual product. What is the product that you're selling? How was it packaged? And this is, going into specifics, right? The person just answering the objective is just saying they provided cool packaging, and with the product person, you actually, in more detail, okay, what do you mean by cool? Did they have any cool warranties? Like, for instance, a lifelong guarantee, something. What was the price? What were the terms? Could you buy it on cash or credit? Was it cash only? Did they provide any discounts to try to sell more products? Did they provide any sort of sales materials to sort of like help with the sales? Like, for instance, send out maybe flyers or something. I don't know. To let you know there's actual sales going on. Promotion. So how did they promote the actual products? So for instance, did they utilize social media? Did they use traditional media? Did they use cable television? Did they use broadcasting? What did they use to promote the actual product? So this is where you have to say, they did trailers. Let's say it's a movie. They started releasing trailers 30 days in advance. They started doing 30-second commercials, 3 weeks prior to the actual launching of the film, those sorts of things on promotion. And then, of course, place, where could they buy the actual tickets? Where did they make them available? If there was movie theaters open, then, you can say, oh, they could buy them at the theater, or they could buy them online. So I'll end there since it is 12:46. So is there any questions on this part? And again, we'll go over 5, 6, 7, and 8 next week. But I am going to make a recording of this also, 5, 6, 7, and 8 for my class on Monday. So you do want to watch it, even though I'll go over it again with you guys, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Because I think this is more important than the, yes, Georgette, I am going to post a slide on Canvas. It's going to say group assignments. And so where it tells you who your groups are. Also on Canvas, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create discussion rooms so you guys can go in there and discuss and exchange emails or phone numbers or whatever it is that you guys want to exchange. I will post that on Canvas. Any other questions? Sorry for going a tad over.
I have a question regarding the case studies again.
Okay.
So when I know you said for each category besides evaluation, that one could be a little bit more like a paragraph, but every other category should be one sentence. But when you say one sentence,
I'm talking
do you
about
mean
the pestle and the
Oh, like the first part, Tesla SWAT, right?
Yeah. The
Yeah,
other
sorry.
parts can be a few sentences.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's what I was referring to. I got kind of mixed up. But with the pestle swap part, you know how you said we have to use the parentheticals and indicate which like category it is. So
Yes.
as far as the sentence goes, is it like verbatim what the reading in the case study says, or are we like kind of paraphrasing it in our own words and being like, this is why it falls under, T as a threat? Like I just wanted to get it clarified a bit more.
You could take it straight out of you can quote the actual case study, or you could paraphrase it. I would personally, if I was you, I would just take it straight out of the case study, and then at the end of that sentence, just put, an S, a W, an O, or a T.
Okay, got it. Thank you.